My mom didn't recognize me until one unexplainable night brought her back. It was one of those March nights when the world seems to hold its breath, when even the wind quiets, as if nature itself is listening for something. In Indian Trail, North Carolina, a town just far enough from Charlotte to still carry the hush of country life, the Bennett's home sat tucked behind two aging oak trees. Their branches, thick with memory, reached over the roof like hands in prayer. The porch light was off, though Jason usually left it on. Claire had forgotten to remind him. She was tired in that way that doesn't show on the face but weighs in the chest. Motherhood, grief, and waiting tend to carve that kind of tiredness. Inside the house, everything was still, the kind of stillness that feels heavier than silence. It pressed against the walls like fog. Claire moved through the house barefoot. The wooden floor creaked beneath her, despite her practiced quiet steps. She passed the kitchen, where the old refrigerator let out its occasional hum, and into the hallway where framed photographs lined both sides. Life in frozen moments. Jason holding Lily for the first time at the hospital, Lily in a tiny ladybug costume, Margaret, Claire's mother, laughing in a faded 4th of July t-shirt, surrounded by hydrangeas. She paused at one of the pictures. Margaret standing beside a cake, frosting on her nose, from a birthday party no one remembered the year of. She looked alive there, full, like the woman who once danced in the kitchen while making pancakes on Saturday mornings. Claire blinked and moved on. She opened the door to Lily's room slowly. The nightlight cast a soft amber glow against the walls, painting shadows that danced like dreams. Her daughter lay tangled in a sea of blankets, her thumb near her mouth, her stuffed bunny tucked under one arm, its ears flattened from love. Claire stepped closer, brushing a curl from Lily's forehead. The girl didn't stir, but her breathing was deep and even. "I love you," Claire whispered, barely above breath. More than anything. She stood there for another moment, her arms wrapped around herself, then quietly pulled the door until it clicked shut. Back down the hallway, past the linen closet and the bathroom door with the peeling paint, she stopped at the final door on the left, her mother's room. The air felt colder here, as it always did. Claire never understood why. Margaret sat in her recliner by the window, eyes blank, lips slightly parted. The blanket that Claire had placed over her earlier was now sliding off one shoulder. Her hands, those hands that used to braid Claire's hair and press warm bread into her palms, now rested motionless in her lap like forgotten artifacts. Claire stepped inside. The room smelled faintly of lavender oil and something older, like folded linens that hadn't seen the sun. A Bible sat unopened on the nightstand, its cover worn from years of use long before the disease came. Claire knelt beside the chair, placing one hand gently on her mother's arm. "Mama," she whispered. Margaret didn't respond. Her gaze remained fixed outside the window, though the blinds were closed. Claire's throat tightened. "I miss you," she said, the words cracking like dry leaves. "You've been here every day, and yet you're not." Margaret made a small sound, a breath maybe, but her eyes didn't move. Claire lowered her head, resting it lightly against her mother's knee. "Do you know Lily started praying last week? I didn't teach her that. She just folded her hands and talked to the air, and she said she was talking to you, the you I remember." A long silence followed, the kind that builds pressure in your chest. Claire lifted her head, her voice now smaller. "God, if you're listening, I'm tired. I'm not asking for healing. I'm not asking for a sign. I just want one moment, just one, where she sees us, where she knows us, where Lily can look into her eyes and feel seen. Please." "Lee!" The words fell into the air and disappeared like smoke. Claire stood slowly, placed the blanket back over Margaret's shoulders, and kissed her temple. Her mother didn't blink, didn't stir. Back in her bedroom, Jason was already asleep. One arm across his chest, the other flopped over the pillow. Claire slid under the covers, turned to face the wall and closed her eyes, though sleep didn't come. At exactly 3:07 a.m., the house fell into that strange kind of silence that feels like it's listening. And in the little girl's room, Lily's eyes opened, not wide, just enough. Her body sat up as if pulled by an invisible thread. The bunny stayed in her hand, the blanket draped over one shoulder. Her feet touched the floor with a soft sound. She walked through the room, down the hallway, past the wedding photo, past the picture of her Nana smiling in the garden, through the kitchen. The nightlight by the pantry cast a small half-circle of light on the tile. Her steps didn't change. At the back door she reached up. The latch clicked loose without effort. The door opened. Cold air rushed in, curling around her ankles. Outside, the yard was soaked with dew. The grass felt slick beneath her feet. Above, the moon hung full and heavy, its light casting shadows of the bare trees along the fence line. And there, in the middle of the yard, sat the above-ground pool. Left uncovered since the early thaw in February, its tarp folded and forgotten behind the shed. Jason had said he'd close it again soon. It hadn't happened. Lily stepped off the porch and moved toward the water. The surface was still, silver and black under the moonlight. She didn't stop walking. One more step, then another. She reached the edge, and quietly, without sound, she fell forward. A soft splash, a ripple, then silence again. Back inside the house, Jason stirred in his sleep, unaware. Claire's breathing remained even, but her fingers curled slightly beneath the covers. And at the end of the hallway, behind a closed door, Margaret's eyes, unseeing for so long, began to shift. The light in Margaret's room shifted, almost imperceptibly at first. A flicker in the corner, a tremble in the shadow along the wall. Then, without warning, everything stilled. The silence inside the house became something else, not absence of sound, but a presence, thick, sacred, as if the air itself was being held in reverence. Margaret sat unmoving in her recliner by the window, her body slack, her chin resting slightly against her chest. The blanket over her lap had slipped, revealing thin, spotted hands resting quietly on the armrests. Her face, once full of vitality and wit, was now the map of a long journey, one she hadn't chosen to take. But that night, something crossed from the invisible into the visible. A warmth spread through the room. Not the kind that comes from a heater or the sun, but something deeper, a presence. Light bloomed in the far corner, soft and golden, like a sunrise bottled and poured into the space. Not blinding, not theatrical, but undeniable. And from that light, a figure emerged, tall, cloaked in robes so white they seemed to glow from within. His face was not fully visible, and yet it stirred no fear. His presence felt like music she had once known, like a hymn sung softly in the back of a church where only the broken sit. His eyes, what little could be seen, burned with compassion and fire. He spoke. "Margaret!" Her name rang through the room, not like thunder, but like a bell from long ago. Something inside her flickered. Her fingers twitched. Her mouth opened, a dry breath pushing from her chest. I know that name," she whispered. "You have not been forgotten," the figure said, stepping forward. His voice filled the room without sound. It echoed in places beyond hearing. "You have been chosen for this moment." I don't remember," she stammered, blinking hard. "You will." The light swelled gently around them, wrapping her in warmth. The fog began to lift from her mind. Memories stirred like leaves caught in a breeze. The smell of baking bread, the feel of Claire's baby fingers in hers, the sound of laughter in a yard bathed in July sunlight, all of it returning, not all at once, but like a current, steady and sure. The figure stepped closer. "A child is in danger, your granddaughter. Her life is fading as we speak," Margaret gasped. "Lily?" "Yes," the figure nodded. "She walked outside in her sleep. She is in the water now, and only you can reach her." Tears welled in Margaret's eyes. She looked down at her hands. They were no longer shaking. She lifted one, stunned by its steadiness. "But I'm sick. I've been sick for so long." Your daughter cried out to heaven tonight. Her words rose like incense. and the Lord has answered. You have been restored for this moment." Her breathing quickened. She stood, not with effort, not with hesitation. She rose as if someone had lifted the weight from her bones. Her legs held strong beneath her. Her spine, once stooped and frail, stretched tall. Her eyes, once dull with confusion, were now clear, bright. She stepped forward. The room no longer felt cold. She opened the door, her bare feet meeting the hardwood floors with purpose. She passed through the hallway she once knew so well, each picture on the wall lighting up a corner of her memory. Claire in a yellow dress, age 10. Jason grinning with a paper crown on his birthday. Lily as a baby, wrapped in pink. Margaret walked toward the kitchen. The house was dark, but she knew it now. The back door stood open. Outside, the yard was bathed in moonlight. The trees stood like sentinels. The grass shimmered with dew. And then she saw it, the pool, and in it, Lily, still, face down. There was no scream, no hesitation. Margaret ran, across the wet grass. Her legs moved with the strength of youth, though they hadn't obeyed her in years. She reached the metal steps of the above-ground pool and climbed without effort. And then she dove. The water was cold, shockingly cold. It closed over her head like a curtain of glass, but she didn't panic. She opened her eyes beneath the surface. The moon above cast a silver glow, and there, just beneath her, floated Lily, her arms loose, her curls drifting like ribbons. Margaret surged forward. She wrapped her arms around the small body, pulling Lily tightly against her chest. Her heart pounded. Her muscles screamed. But someone, held her. She kicked hard, broke the surface. A gasp tore from her lungs. She pulled Lily above the waterline, her face pressed against her shoulder. And then she heard it, from deep inside the house. "Claire!" Her own voice, strong, full, real. Inside the house, Claire's eyes flew open. Her heart raced. She sat up in bed, breathless. Jason stirred. "What is it?" Claire was already moving. "I heard my mother." "What?" She called my name. Claire didn't wait for his response. She bolted from the room, down the hall, past the kitchen. The back door yawned open. And there in the moonlit yard was a sight she would never forget. Her mother, standing waist-deep in the pool, holding Lily. "Mom!" Claire screamed. She ran, not feeling the cold, not feeling the ground. She waded into the water and took Lily from her mother's arms. The child was limp, silent. Claire collapsed to her knees on the grass, cradling her daughter. "Lily, please, baby, breathe." Jason appeared behind her, dropping to the ground with a towel, wrapping it around them both. Claire rocked back and forth, sobbing, "God, please, please don't take her, please." And then a cough, small, wet, real, then another. Lily's eyes fluttered open. She gasped, cried out weakly. Claire cried out too, pressing her daughter to her chest, kissing her forehead over and over. She looked up. Margaret stood at the edge of the pool, drenched, shivering, her chest heaving, but her eyes were alive. "Mama," Claire whispered. How did you know?" Margaret stepped closer, tears mixing with water on her face. "I saw her," she said. "He showed me. God called my name." Claire's lips trembled. She reached out and touched her mother's hand. "You're here. You're really here." Margaret nodded. "I never left. I was just waiting until he said my name." Claire held her daughter with one arm and reached for her mother with the other. For the first time in years, 3 generations of women held each other. The lost was found. The dying lived. And the silence of that night was broken, not by noise, but by grace. If this story reached something in your soul, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to this channel for more true, faith-filled stories that remind us that when we pray with honest hearts, heaven still answers. And sometimes, heaven calls us by name.